Hello everyone and welcome to Hearty Divination and Astrology. I'm primarily a tarot reader, but I do study astrology as well. I don't know whether you watched my last video talking about the asteroid Vesta in fire. This video is going to be based on the asteroid Pallas. As I've already mentioned, there are many asteroids in our asteroid belt in this solar system, and it's near the orbits of Jupiter and Mars. Pallas Athena was discovered by Heinrich Wilhelm in 1802. So it was earlier than the discovery of Vesta, which was 1807. That is in Western astrology. So this asteroid Pallas was associated with the deity or goddess Athena. Athena was the patron for Athens in Greece. And in Greek mythology, she was the daughter of Zeus and Metis. And the story goes where Metis was trying to escape the sexual advances of Zeus. But she failed and became pregnant. Now, Zeus became very concerned about this, as he recalls being informed by the oracle that Metis was destined to have a daughter just as powerful as her, with a strong and sharp intellect and unbridled will. He thought he had to do something about this. So he encouraged Metis to participate in a shape-shifting challenge. Unwittingly, she transformed herself to a fly, and Zeus swallowed her triumphantly, only to be thwarted by an unbearable headache. Now, the Titan god Prometheus split open Zeus's head with an axe, and out came Athena from his forehead. So that's a symbolization of the third eye. Intuitive thinking. Now, Prometheus, as the godfather, raised Athena along with his own daughter Paris. So they grew up together as though they were biological sisters. And one day they were practicing martial arts, and Pallas accidentally killed Athena. And obviously, full of remorse, she decided to name herself Pallas Athena in honor of her death. You see, Pallas Athena is an archetype which represents our skills and our talents. Arts and craft, healing, military warfare, and creative, intuitive thinking. Pallas Athena demonstrates where we have to navigate situations or circumstances through using improvisation, negotiation, and strategic thinking. It is when we are called to find solutions to resolve problems. So when we think about Pallas Athena, the asteroid, and where it is placed within our own natal charts, that area of your life is where you're going to be the most effective when trying to get yourself out of some real shit or trying to resolve some very difficult, challenging problem, or where you're going to be the most efficient. So when we think about Pallas Athena, we are talking about a warrior goddess. And this notion of matriarchal prowess is a very ancient concept. We can go back to ancient Egypt or Kemet, and we will see deities such as Net, which is known by Neith, by the Greeks, and we have the same deity in Roman mythology by a goddess by the name of Diana. So I'm going to show you a few images and go into more details about the archetype Net, or Neith as you will. In the time of antiquity, matriarchal dominance in ancient Egyptian cultures included feminine authority and sovereignty. It was the norm. Pallas Athena shares qualities which are evident amongst a number of deities. Net, who we know as Neith, seems to be the principal one. Net personifies the ability to establish a pattern, similar to creating a netted fabric, by weaving or determining the pattern of behavior of someone, or an organization, or system. It's that innate ability to perceive patterns or reoccurring themes that constitute the whole, recognizing the interrelatedness of concepts, and therefore able to see the wider perspective. In hindsight, Net is associated with Tahuti, known as Thoth, Anbu, known as Anubis, Sebek, and many other Neteru. Net is portrayed as a woman carrying 2 crossed arrows or weaving shuttle upon her head. Weaving is accomplished by the crossing of nerves and fibers, as indicated by the arrows pointing in opposite directions. Another deity is Merit. She represents the orderly harmonic sequence or process, the maestro of cosmic order, established by the gestures of her command. She is a personification of total harmonious flow of any plan or action. After outlining the archetype of Net and Merit, we immediately identify how Pallas Athena, who is much younger, bears resemblance. In short, Pallas Athena is a warrior goddess with diplomacy and tact, more defensive by nature, but will attack if necessary. She's about strategy, organized fighting, state-of-the-art weaponry, and a proficient manipulator on the battlefield. We are talking about controlled strength here. After looking at Net and Merit in combination, we can see how the qualities of both of them incorporate the core elements of the Pallas Athena archetype. The aptitude for both recognizing the patterns and interconnectedness of a whole, and to find strategic tactics which execute plans smoothly. Athena is the goddess of wisdom, and so is Net, who is associated with Tahuti, the Netaru of wisdom. However, the particulars of Athena's depiction are the symbols of the Aegis shield, owl, and olive. Pallas Athena is her full name, but I shall be referring to her as just Pallas throughout for convenience. Pallas is whenever and wherever we need to defend ourselves and to be protected. Pallas is said to be exalted in Capricorn, cardinal earth, and feminine in polarity. A placement perfect for Pallas in terms of manifestation, especially on the material realm. It is when tangible results take form or likely to happen. I want to discuss Pallas in the air signs Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. Just think about where Pallas is situated in your natal chart. And if you have Pallas in Gemini, in the first house, the environment in which you find yourself, either if it's by choice or default, will be closely monitored. You have this good understanding of where you fit in society and able to assimilate into social arenas above your station, even if stemming from humble beginnings. You will be a social animal. Human nature is universal, and you recognize the commonalities we share, regardless of class, race, or creed, and rely upon this fact to color your personality and engage others. As a chameleon, you change the appearance of your face according to the audience. So convincing are you. For some people, you are captivating. Meanwhile, others perceive a more melancholy and uninspiring individual. The truth is that you are both one and the same person. Pallas in Gemini in the first house is aware of the advantages of each persona to make the right impression at the right time and to serve self-interest. I wouldn't mistake this for being self-absorbed. It's a means of survival, to maneuver throughout life as a shield and armor from anything which is considered a hindrance to the objective. And this objective could be getting your own way, favor, or any other privilege. It's a case of learning that psychological manipulation is one approach to compel others. But meanwhile, there are some hard lessons to be learnt from this by undermining and mishandling your own integrity. Venus is Gemini's esoteric ruler. So from a higher perspective, you ought to be attempting to understand others from a place of love, where wisdom truly begins. Even if the public persona you want to present is not based on emotional reasons, it is an urge to be principled at least. There is no harm in the observation and discernment, but don't forget heart. Not wear it exactly on your sleeve. This love is followed by the will to unite with everyone, feeling kinship and connectedness, obviously within reason. So no matter what important social links, affiliations and brackets are required or acquired deliberately, remember that it can be done graciously also. Whether you are rubbing shoulders with the right people, the smart set, the cultured class, or even the popular, it still applies. The rules still apply. The first house is the domicile to Aries, ruled by Mars, and when Gemini occupies this space, it is a synthesis of Mercury as both the ruler of Gemini and esoterically for Aries. So we're dealing with a self-assertive personality which ought to be balanced with some level of genteel. And when we look at the second house, if we have Pallas in Gemini in the second house, here Mercury moves slightly slower in the home of Taurus. Not that you would be stuck in a rut with financial matters, but financial literacy is more practical and methodical. There is likely to be more money in the bank and less of leaving abundance down to chance or risk. Your outlook towards money matters may be more fixed eventually, although you are informed about different business schemes, investments and other trades, and probably have first-hand experience. You choose an avenue that enables guaranteed success and serves your best interests. After all, even if you don't rate your financial expertise, common sense and doing a little homework prepares you for the unexpected. Basically, the ability to monopolize in any given situation. But remember, the ruler of the second house is Venus. And Pallas in Gemini in the second house, if there are discordant aspects with Mars, Mercury, or the Moon, for example, then money can be mismanaged, such as failed investments, whether that be property development, digital currencies, or some misjudgment with a business venture that proves to be nothing but a desire on the premise of an illusion. You know, these things do happen. But there is a difficulty with blowing hot and then cold with any decisions concerning money. So stability could be a problem. And as we venture into the third house, where we have Pallas in Gemini in the third house, communication is versatile and quite witty. Some of you have the uncanny ability to become fluent in foreign languages and an expert on non-verbal communication, but strangely enough, without emotional quotient. Your interpersonal skills have developed by means of social conditioning, norms, and what is considered acceptable. What your mother and father told you, or what you learnt in school. This you have understood, as mentioned previously. Gathering information from previous experience, noting the tendency and probability of how others converse and behave, gets you by. And this sort of logic is fine. However, certain circumstances call for emotional intelligence. For those of you who are more advanced souls, you may draw from your esoteric ruler Venus rather than being methodical, objective and practical, focusing on detail. The lessons to learn are thus respect, devotion, empathy, love, and broad-mindedness. Communication and building a rapport with someone requires more than just analysis, but also compassion. Avoid complication. Simplicity is key. And with Gemini being domiciled to the 3rd house, there is a tendency to overthink things. And this is not a problem, because you could be someone that makes the final statement in a debate, or decipher parables or riddles with ease. And you often make great chess players if you care to play. But remember, Gemini is masculine and active and forthright. Amongst peers and siblings, you are likely to be the instigator of all the altercations that may take place between you, or the mediator to settle confrontations, restoring peace and order. You see, you comprehend the dynamics of all parties involved. It is second nature to dissipate any argument or add air to the fire and create an explosion. For those people that know you personally, you have a habit of code switching when speaking. And this is expressed in an energetic manner which appears youthful and accommodating. It is effective, and it certainly gets the message across regardless. But as we get to the 7th house of relationships, Pallas in the 7th house in Gemini gives you the ability to be fair-minded in relationships. Love connections are more practical. Compromise is likely to be a strategy which allows you to have your needs met without the other person even realizing. For instance, your partner may insist on a quiet night in since you're always out. You agree and find yourself online most of the evening. In fact, it's an opportunity to reach out to even more people from the comfort of your own home. Not that you are unloving, it's just excessive rationalization, which appears unromantic. Deep down, there are some feelings somewhere. Regardless of whether you happen to be a man or woman, if there is a person you have the hots for, well, you find ingenious ways of capturing their love, or at best, getting their attention. You are a sapiosexual, someone that can be attracted to a person's mind. Remember, Venus rules the 7th house, and combined with Mercury energy, the drive to be affectionate can be a meeting of two minds. Anyone with Pallas in Gemini in the 7th house has to be careful of being too dispassionate. Initially, all love relationships are great at first. But Pallas in Gemini in the 7th house could also mean you attempt to be everything for your love, the multifaceted partner who is a friend, a confidant, advisor and lover, because it's the expectation. If Pallas is squaring the moon or Uranus, then love could be very difficult to express due to the separation from feelings, which would be almost impossible to overcome. Doesn't mean that love is non-existent, mind you. And as for business, partnerships, you have a tendency to mix business with pleasure, and many of your associates are accounted at or through work. Mercury, as Gemini's ruler, can vibrate on a higher frequency of Uranus, its esoteric ruler of Libra. So we are talking about someone that could also be unconventional in their relations with others, an individual spin in terms of interpersonal skills. And this is how you will be functioning when relating to others. And there's also an indication here that there could be people who have alternative sexuality and people that choose partners that are worlds apart from themselves. Pallas in Gemini in the 10th house of career, ambition, and what you strive for. There'll be no doubt you know how to work your head, or should I say, use your brain. So it's no surprise if you find yourself in the communications industry, technology, working with computers or something of that nature. You know, to put it succinctly, you've got strong organizational talents which could find you working for a public sector or in some sort of management or running your own business. And you're going to be the sort of person that's going to embrace change with a futuristic outlook. The advantages of Pallas placed in Gemini in the 10th house: if you discover that plans have failed with regards to a job, a creative project and or business, this is where you confront adversity head on. Don't forget, Pallas Athena is also a warrior with respect to defense, a protective energy which can serve self, community or national interests. Their aptitude to adapt to change is a military manner. It's kind of overcoming obstacles as a disciplined strategist, the necessary capabilities of a successful leader. You can lead your own life without having to be pushed, because the inspiration is just there and the drive. And we know that Saturn is the natural ruler of the 10th house. And Saturn facilitates order, hard work. And the goddess Merit executes the plan that Net had strategized. And that's the only way I can explain this placement in the 10th house in Gemini. Because Pallas is actually exalted in Capricorn. And however, if your moon is in the same house, unfortunately, then emotions may be somewhat unstable, where you are involved in many pursuits at once, cannot make your mind up on which direction to place all the focus. And there is this possibility that routine becomes too boring and you attempt doing too many things at once, which will result in outcomes not anticipated. It could be for the worst. For example, you're enrolled as a part-time student at a college, you want to write a book and start a business, and you've also got to pay the bills. You question if further education is worthwhile because of the debt and the availability of work. Then the book could be a passive income, but you've only written 2,000 words and it's meant to be a 30,000 word book. And that's due to assignment deadlines at college which you prioritized. Committing a certain amount of hours a week towards developing your business proves challenging because of full-time employment. Do you get the idea? You're the sort of person that will suppress your emotions to try and handle all the responsibilities. It's kind of reminiscent of the Nine of Wands in the tarot deck, where we have Moon in Sagittarius. And remember, Sagittarius is the opposite polarity to Gemini. And this is where you draw your inspiration and optimism. That has become extreme to the point of overwhelming. Pallas in Gemini, immutable air, is a very challenging placement, especially for the 10th house, which is our work and our career and our ambitions. With it being in cardinal earth, which is Capricorn, you know, you're going to initiate action, you're going to want things to happen. But the mutable air has you in a state of vacillation. And that's the thing. So that will be all for Gemini. If you have Pallas in Libra, Pallas in Libra in the first house personifies beauty and harmony. That means demonstrating affection comes easily. You are generally warm, approachable and engaging, born with an inherent understanding of what it is to be socially acceptable. You was born with etiquette, and you may spend much time on nurturing your character in ways which is beyond reproach. There is probably a great deal of attention and effort placed on self-development. You may not necessarily reach levels of perfection, but it could be your aim subconsciously. People who meet you for the first time feel that you are too polite and suspect there is an ulterior motive. Sometimes there is, especially if you're trying to captivate the heart of the opposite sex. That's how it is. But if Pallas happens to have opposing or conflicting energies to the planet Venus, then the personality is imbalanced. Instead of possessing impressive interpersonal skills, you are rather overbearing and seek acknowledgement from others in order to validate self-worth and fulfillment. The problem here is, in trying to have a comprehensive background knowledge of everyone you meet, you lose sight of yourself at times, basically too concerned with the deficits in the character of others that you fail to recognize the shortfalls in your own personality. However, you manage to avoid or appease criticism because Pallas allows you to cultivate that winsome persona, which is endearing public image. How could it fail, since you know the importance of taking everyone into consideration? How sweet. Well, on most occasions, it's a technique for weaving into the fabric of society and to be accepted. I have often heard the zodiac signs Libra and Aquarius and Leo are associated with the archetype Pallas. And now I see why. Do you? But as we get to the second house, Pallas in Libra in the second house, remember Venus is the natural ruler of the second house, and the zodiac sign Libra also. So you have Venus and Venus, all that love, You have high expectations with regards to a material standard of living. Pallas has you balancing out income and expenditure. You are not afraid of splashing out hard-earned cash, especially for the things and people you love, if they deserve it. In fact, the control of capital is not a problem, but viewed as a necessary sacrifice, since you cannot bear to be without. And you satisfy the sensual pleasures in life without too much debt, if any. You purchase goods and services for a fraction of the price, and never underestimate the benefits of long-term investments. With the ability to determine the trends in financial markets, plans made today in anticipation for the future go beautifully. According to you, you are worthy of the utmost best, and defend the right to live prosperously, or decently at least. Affluent tastes and a keen eye for detail and beauty could find you in industries like buying retail, interior design, architecture, a hairstylist. Yeah. Another aspect with this placement is the fight for justice. Legal battles pertaining to compensation, assets, or any other possessions. You have the advantage of receiving a favorable outcome in lawsuits, since you know how to utilize the law and protect your self-interests. Many of you will work in consumer rights organizations or debt advice services. If Pallas is in conjunction with the North Node, then all of these positive attributes concerning the management of finance are to be acquired during this lifetime. Yeah, we're talking about in this particular incarnation. So even if you fall into debt, you are unlikely to repeat the same circumstance again. Being stuck in a rut doesn't leave much options, does it really? And becoming a victim to material desires leads to debt. So, especially when it overshadows all other priorities. Time to tip the scales onto an even keel. And this is where Pallas in Libra in the second house, domicile to Taurus, is determined to maintain a healthy bank balance without the denial of the good things in life. In the sixth house, the experience can be quite different. Pallas in Libra in the sixth house, fate could find you in a field of work or profession that involves healing others. As well as a warrior and great strategist, there is the art of therapeutic remedy. Don't forget, Net is one of the 4 canopic jar patrons, protector of the stomach, the digestive system. So even if you're not a physician, you could be an herbalist, a counselor, life coach, or motivational speaker, or any other type of healing, such as being the agony aunt, or, for many of your friends and family. Unfortunately, Libra's ruler, Venus, is debilitated in the sixth house. Ironically, self-healing ought to be first and foremost for many with this placement, before even considering being of service to others. For instance, you cannot be an effective Reiki practitioner if you have blocked chakras. If not, you are a person that faces challenges with establishing a healthy work-life balance. The daily routine is hazardous to your well-being, either mentally or physically, or both. And if you are a health practitioner, although you have reached a level of expertise in your chosen profession with regards to knowledge and experience, outstanding performance or achievement is not forthcoming. due to the inflexible mindset, you know, you've been sort of conditioned to adhere to conventional theory, not advocating creative, intuitive thinking or using your initiative. Any attempts to be innovative is very unlikely, you know, because according to you, it cannot work or it is impossible. You know, you could be someone with health issues or a rare condition, and there is a problem finding diagnosis or treatment. A significant period of your life is spent on trying to find a cure or some sort of remedy. But after consulting several physicians and hardest research, you then finally encounter the perfect solution, which is an ancient practice used by rural communities in South America. You know, we just got to give thanks for technology and international postal services. That's all we can say with that one. But in the house of relationships, if you have Pallas in Libra in the 7th house, then, you know, you're obviously at home. Everyone has heard that relationships require work to actually work. And this is a fact, we all know it. And in all types of partnerships, whether it's a friendship, business, colleagues at work, and of course, romance and love, Pallas in Libra equips you with an in-depth understanding of the human psyche. You are aware of the repertoire of psychological conditionings or mindsets that is placed on everyone in most societies. It's something that you have given much thought and consideration. Although you have an ideal about human relationships and conscientious towards commitment, human failings like bad business deals and a broken heart does not dishearten you from believing in that perfect friendship, partner, or lover, whichever is appropriate. For you, a big argument or confrontation is the start of a new beginning. You know, after a storm follows a calm. So restoring harmony and balance is inevitable. Pallas perceives the underlying dynamics of all relations and comprehends all matters as coherent wholes. In other words, identifying the interconnectedness of the main issues, whatever the problem, concern, or dilemma may be, and rectifying the root of the cause. It's this level of insight we're talking about. And I reckon it's inspired by Uranus, Libra's esoteric ruler. And Pallas endows those blessed with this placement qualities such as great listening skills, negotiation, problem solving, decision making, and assertiveness. This is a placement which is strengthened by Saturn, if it's in the 7th house also, or even if there are agreeable aspects to it. It's a great indication for those people that are wired up to long-term relationships. It's a wonderful placement for commitment. Please, listeners, do not be mistaken into thinking that such a placement can win over unrequited love, because if someone is adamant about leaving, Pallas Athena cannot prevent what is meant to be. And as we move on to the 11th house, if we have Pallas in Libra in the 11th house, you're going to devote yourself to social life. Wide network of friends, associates, and you will be a responsible individual possessing emotional control, which is conducive to good friendship, loyalty, and it also can be beneficial in leadership and service for the community or nation. A great Pallas placement for potential diplomats, social activists, or even event organizers. As a social activist, you promote fairness, justice, and equality for unrepresented and oppressed groups. You see social injustice as an orchestration that needs a different maestro to play another symphony. You seek balance and harmony and able to promote such principles with diplomacy, tact, and sometimes impartiality. Yeah? That's how cool you are. And here you will discover advocates of fair trade, equitable business, LGBT enthusiasts, you name it, whatever you want to fight for or establish or acknowledge. And if you are not a wedding planner, organizing a special elaborate event at a unique and prestigious venue, then you are a top fashion designer preparing a fashion show, managing the models, the runway, and the technicalities. Remember, Uranus is the ruler of the 11th house and is also Libra's esoteric ruler. So intuitive, creative intelligence is at its peak here. You're a walking oracle. So you envisage the fantasy in the mind's eye as a complete picture and create that in the 3D world. If Pallas has other planetary aspects such as Venus, Uranus, Saturn, or the Moon, which are not so agreeable, then the positive attributes of Pallas are disaffected, unfortunately, or not as impactful, could we say. And you may not see yourself as worthy of anything, neither are you able to resolve personal or social problems. Yeah, there's this feeling of being lonely and not believing in yourself. Another way this energy could play out is the inclination towards alternative, outlandish viewpoints and a disdain for convention and normality, which finds you living a troubled life, avoiding responsibility and not being able to participate in society as a valued member. It's an inability to adapt to the environment and social surroundings intelligently. So that's how the experience would be if you have Pallas in Libra. If you have Pallas in Aquarius, Pallas in Aquarius in the first house, I wouldn't say you're the odd one out, but you do stand out, although this is not intentional. You probably wear clothes that are from retail outlets that pride themselves on ethical production or have a liking for high fashion which has good quality and durability. If not, your unique style is a cut above the rest, as a quirky trendsetter. Others can feel your genuine liking for the companionship of others. An energetic person that is on point and at times further ahead than the majority of people. You could surprise people with the ability to suddenly transform yourself when considered necessary. Not like a chameleon as Gemini does, but being conscious of the stereotypes and cliches and the conformity you see society for what it is and likely to be dissatisfied. For you, universal truths, values and wisdom is an ideal worth living for. Pallas urges you to be the change you want to see. You dislike being pigeonholed. So going beyond boundaries not only opens up new possibilities for yourself and others, but also makes our world much more interesting and inviting. For some, such changes can be disruptive and unpredictable, which is a real shocker, while others have more controlled and organized approach, proving to be more tolerable. I mean, for instance, veganism, everyone's vegan at the moment. I mean, that's the environment I'm in. But why are you a vegan? People are vegan for various reasons. But for someone with Aquarius, Pallas in Aquarius in the first house, they're probably a vegan because they want to grow their own food and rely on home-cooked meals. Not because they're trying to lose weight or jumping on the bandwagon, but for several reasons, such as economical, avoiding GMO pesticides, and challenging the exploits of food industries and pharmaceutical companies. Figuratively speaking, veganism is like killing 3 birds with 1 stone, for lack of a better analogy. So it's that deep. And it's a placement for people with an alternative perspective on many issues like the removal of debt, unnecessary taxes, and compulsory eco lifestyles. Another way it can be experienced is dreaming about futuristic culture and what it is to be in 50 years' time. And on the extreme end would be someone who claims to be in this world but not part of it. And another take on this would be, I do what I please and I don't give a crap what others think, because I have faith in the vision. Sounds simple. But if you have Pallas in Aquarius in the second house, this experience can be varied when it comes to money. If Pallas happens to be in aspect to either Saturn or Uranus, particularly a square or opposition, then the misusage of money is more likely. But overall, you avoid the temptations and trappings of debt and not gullible to hidden costs or misleading terms and conditions in any agreement. Once you fathom how the economic system functions and operates, recognizing both its benefits and losses, the aim is to work around the pitfalls and set a plan that brings a passive income or some sort of financial freedom, because you want your time to yourself, basically. And if you are extremely fortunate enough to have Jupiter in orbit with Pallas in a harmonious position, then abundance is a blessing either by means of financial breakthrough or accidental discovery. You establish new marketing strategies unknown to the masses. You want to do away with the old way of doing things that doesn't work anymore. So what do? You try to inspire the younger generation to develop marketing skills or become actively involved in some way. or you identify loopholes in the law to protect your own financial interest, or you create a legacy from an innovative invention that improves the quality of life for many. I always say the invention of the wheel, aircraft and electricity are revolutionary ideas which possibly altered the course of history forever. With Pallas in Aquarius in the second house, there is a potential to introduce advancements beyond conventional thinking in whatever area of interest, or providing products and services in a very unorthodox way could prove to be essential or in demand. And that could be anything from toiletries to new technologies. Venus as the ruler of the second house, this placement has an element of passion and compassion. You know that you do. When we get to the fourth house now, and with Pallas in Aquarius in the fourth house, and remember the moon is the natural ruler. So there is a conscious or even subconscious effort to protect family and or community traditions. The support of person that emphasizes the importance of maintaining cultural practices, and will arrange and supervise events to commemorate identity, nationality, or whatever the ethos is followed. According to you, all nations preserve group interests, whether it be for religious, political, or economic purposes. You could be a coordinator for a Native American association, or a participant for the active involvement of the West Indian community in Canada, or be a consistent contributor to the Red Head Festival in Dublin, Ireland, United Kingdom. The aim is to highlight collective interests and concerns by acquiring authority and autonomy over the destiny of a distinctive group. However, this placement can also translate as emotional independence and the desire to break free from family and community expectations. For you, life is meant to be lived as the individual sees fit. You know, as a child, you felt like a loner, at odds with your siblings. Maybe you're the black sheep of the family. You know, maybe you belong to a religious or social or ethnic group that is perceived as outmoded by today's standards in society. You do not appreciate being part of the community because it bears no significance to your worldview today, since you have ideologies of your own. So you rebel and detach yourself from your roots to seek knowledge and enlightenment along this soul journey. If you could imagine, your family background could be Muslim, Christian or Hindu, but you understand that although religious preach similar doctrines about love and peace, somehow it manages to divide humanity on a large scale. You've witnessed the persecutions in the name of religious faith and decide to live by a philosophy which promotes more peace in the world. For you, right-wing and left-wing views bear no significance. They're simply disturbing and out of touch. And as we come to the 10th house, if you are not an influential person, then you're in the midst of trying to set up some organization. Or you could be the CEO of a company but can't stomach the company politics, the work politics, and the hierarchical structure. Then, if not, then you must be a principal member of some sort of establishment. This is the vibe of Pallas in Aquarius in the 10th house. You know, you could be an instigator for reform in your workplace or any other outdated institution that you would rather see crumble and fall. It's about forging new paths for improved developments. You could be implementing efficient communication systems as a remote worker, or an advocate for enforcing eccentric ideas regarding education, training and employment at a local or even government level. Or you are highly strung about amending social policy for senior citizens to ensure it serves their best interests. Because Pallas has bestowed you with the capacity to have full comprehension of any system, organisation or corporation. And this enables planning towards infiltrating the existing structures to promote modification and therefore change which benefits everyone. It's all about public and civic engagement activities, which are critical in building trust in public institutions. The people must have some involvement in the development and application of new solutions. How else are they going to know how to serve us? So Saturn, being the natural ruler of the 10th house and the co-ruler of Aquarius, this is someone that will admire or adhere to or respect long-term strategies for success, accompanied by a rigid outlook concerning the outcome. Yeah, this is dangerous. So, as we go on to the 12th house, if we have Pallas in Aquarius in the 12th house, and the natural ruler of the 12th house is Neptune, as we know, and the co-ruler Jupiter. You may be a follower of all, of alternative religious, spiritual or philosophical beliefs. If not, the desire to become a pioneer of a new movement with aims to inspire masses in a direction that goes against the grain. Pallas incites the need to amalgamate all types of knowledge, whether it's stemming from, Church of Scientology, for instance, or Divine Light Mission, or Osho movement, or any other known sect. You recognize the interconnectedness of them all, and in doing so, it enables you to discover your own truths, since all paths lead to the same destination, enlightenment. And the historic ruler of the 12th house is, the esoteric ruler, should I say, of the 12th house is Pluto, representing death and resurrection, restructuring the old to recreate something new. Overall, there is an understanding or an underlying frustration with conventional ideas and establishments, that no longer serve us. The need to penetrate the roots of things and seek information regarding the mysterious is very likely. Research in the area of metaphysics or the occult is possible. Pallas allows you to lift the veil, where visionary insight into the nature of consciousness discards old and established knowledge in preference for new perceptions concerning the nature of reality. It is a placement for those with powerful intuition and strong emotion, which can be easily misguided, if not, misguided, and you could lead you to confusion if not channeled correctly. And another experience could be altruistic or sacrificial services, such as becoming a nun or a priest or a Buddhist monk, not solely for the purpose of religion, but a devotion towards soul fulfillment, since the outside world has nothing further to offer. It's a subconscious feeling, that you owe the world something or have a duty which is greater than yourself. Prisons, psychiatric institutions, or care homes, or places where you long to witness reform. or do away with altogether, because many of the so-called perpetrators of crime, insanity, or old age are actually victims of society, in your view. So dedicating time for their best interests in whatever capacity is something worthwhile or worth living for. The 12th house also urges us to question the meaning of life, delving into the past to make sense of the present. Our current day experiences are linked to the historical past. When we ponder over the ancestors and consider the lineage that is being continued by us living today, Pallas allows you to analyze one generation to the next, and this immediately reveals what exactly is in need of veneration and what should be abandoned for the upliftment of future generations. Yeah, because this house has been known as the house of karma also, and ancestors. So Pallas in Aquarius in the 12th house, most importantly, the last thing you want is to be isolated without connection or meaning to the omniscience, omnipresence, and omnipotent. And that's all, folks.